Right, there we go.
What was that?
Let me just John D. Invite you up. Okay. Good evening, everybody. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening, man.
I hope everyone's doing good. If it's daytime where you are, it's daytime. But it's nighttime where I am, so it is good evening or good night.
Well, actually, it's evening here, too. Just gonna throw that out there.
And remember, everybody is welcome to take the mic. And remember, everybody is welcome to take the mic time in all of the spaces. So just jump up or put your hand up. And yeah, so tonight's spaces is about smart money and Bitcoin. A bit of a follow-up from my journey to Malta and AI Blockchain Summit. And also just a catch-up on what's been going on with the FTX FUD, and seeing how badly maybe BTC or BTC builders are affected. Also, I've put a few things up in the nest actually. So also a few articles, a few more interesting articles, some Craig Wright news that I've put up there as well, that some of you might not have seen, but I thought it would be quite interesting to discuss in this week's space. So,
Why don't we get started with how the summit went that you went to over in Malta?
Okay, right, yeah. So the summit over in Malta was pretty big this year. I've been to 3 of the 4 summits now that they've hosted in Malta. I went to the first one in 2018. I went to the second one in 2019, and obviously we had the pandemic period in between time, and it resumed, I believe, in 2021. But I didn't attend that particular conference. And this year, for the first time, I was a speaker on the conference, and I was invited to speak on a panel regarding smart money and where the smart money is going in the space, or where it tends to go, really. And I think all of you that know me from around the space know what my answer to that was. Along with talking about some of the experiences that users have through UI UX, and why kind of like retail and institutions kind of end up in the same kind of model in a way with the usage of this technology. And obviously my view is that primarily rests with people not actually learning anything about this space when they come into it, like during the hype cycles, or the hype of the cycles. People come in, they don't really know what's going on. They've heard that their friend made some money, or if they're institutional, they've heard that another institution or another business has made a killing in crypto, so to speak. They come rushing into the space with their ideas. They're told to just go to the Ethereum blockchain and create a token, or create an NFT collection or whatever, or create some really weird tokenomics project. Or they're given these investment vehicles, as we've seen, such as FTX, again, Celsius, kind of like CeFi or TradFi based solutions that are just kind of dressed up in a blockchain and cryptocurrency sheepskin, shall we say, to kind of like talk about money. But my take on it in that panel was that if we're talking about money, and a lot of you probably heard me say this as well, if we're talking about money, what money are we talking about? Like, because like there's only like kind of one true money at the moment that is out here, and I think we all know what that is. So and you can see from institutions that do put a lot of money into the space, they tend not to trickle large funds down into other shall we say protocols, unless they've already kind of got some Bitcoin on their balance sheet, to be honest. So it's very unusual for institutions to come in and buy something else on Bitcoin and ETH, really. They tend to go into other things after they've got those things. But as I said, you do get the ones that get caught up. So that was really what the panel was about. I was on there with Crypto Megan, also on the same panel. Jingwei Lee, who's quite a popular manager over at Fidelity, and also James Bowler, who is the guy who runs the Crypto AM newspaper, which is a middle paper pullout in the middle of the AM newspaper, which is a free publication that is given out in many train stations in London, and used to really just cover the square mile. And if you don't know what the square mile is in London, that is like the banking district. So it's a pretty big publication. James is a pretty well-known guy in the UK and in the international crypto scene. So it's a panel, and quite a lot of agreements from the other members on the panel of the fact that Bitcoin seems to be where the institutional money it kind of always ends up. And however, to move out into like wider DeFi, one of the things that I pointed out is that I feel that Bitcoin DeFi is the actual future of DeFi, as you guys probably already know. So that was pretty well agreed upon, and there was a few good meetings that I had after that with people wanting to find out more about Bitcoin DeFi. So overall, the panel itself was quite good. And the event itself, as I said, was massive. It was 4 different events put together. Malta have one of the biggest iGaming industries in the world. So they had an iGaming event that was running all week long alongside their AI and blockchain summit. They had also an affiliates summit that was going on as well, and a medtech summit, which was originally started as the cannabis summit when they legalized the summit in cannabis in Malta a few years back. So that has now turned into the medtech summit. But it was pretty good, man. Pretty good. Met lots of crypto friends and new people out coming in for the first time. Institutionals, quite a lot of institutionals and gaming people, obviously, and quite a lot of people now interested in finding out about stacks and building stuff. In relation to Bitcoin. So overall, it was a good trip.
Well, yeah, good to hear that, man. Good to hear that. So I seen you threw up a link. What does crypto look like after FTX? And it's kind of wondering your thoughts on it.
Well, to be honest, I'd like to hear everybody else's thoughts on it. To be honest, I mean, you guys pretty much well know my stance with everything when the chips fall, and when we're in a bear market in crypto. Clearly, people are still building, no matter which protocol they're working on, and I think that that's what people should just concentrate on doing. But again, as I said, when you look at the TVL right now and you look at the market dominance, we all kind of know where it is. There's no point in us trying to fool ourselves.
Right.
What about you guys, Jack, John, Doc? What do you guys think about the current state of crypto after FTX?
Oh man, hey, how y'all doing? I'm glad you got back safe from your travels. I was traversing some bad weather here, trying to get back in. Overall, man, the FTX thing is well. First of all, I guess you start with that. It's not fully known all of the ramifications yet. I think the last time I read, just with FTX alone, there was over 130 entities that wound up declaring bankruptcy. Clearly, it's being used as a way to besmirch crypto as a whole by the media and punditry, right? And so we're getting to see in real time how normal people who aren't crypto natives, they still conflate the two. And it's been real eye-opening seeing, I think, for a lot of people in crypto, to see just how just the media is just straight up lies about things. So there's going to be repercussions from that end as well, right? And I mean, those repercussions could positively affect crypto because there are people who are paying attention who don't trust the media already, and then you have the people who did trust the media who are paying a different kind of attention. So I think that we'll be watching this fallout here for a while, and not that the market needed any more FUD, but this kind of stuff increases it, obviously, and then it creates different But I mean, we've seen instances just in these past couple of weeks where people will, panic sell and then create narratives, and other people panic sell. But overall, I think it's extraordinarily positive, at least for the blockchains that are focused on decentralization. I think that when the smoke all clears, within people who are crypto native, as well as newcomers to the space, like you were talking about earlier, um, when you're talking about people who come in and they've got these notions that, oh man, someone made money and this is what you do. I think that now that part of it has the potential to change a little bit as well. Um, we're always sitting here saying decentralize the future, right? So people will start to understand what that means. There, because there's deeper levels of understanding, right? You can hear something and get a baseline level of understanding, and then you operate there until something else happens, and then you get a deeper understanding that's present in all of our lives. So that dynamic is also going to play out, and I think that's going to be very positive. Um, so when I'm doing some stuff right now in the pre-accelerator, and I'm trying to figure out good directions to take things, and try to qualify good ideas and disqualify bad ideas in this little endeavor that I'm on. And I was talking to some ETH degens today, and I was doing a little bit of market research. And you have to understand that the guys I was talking to is a group of 50 dudes who I've been in crypto with for years now. We were all on ETH, all ETH native, messing around with all those side chains. And without telling them the blockchain's name, just talking to them and describing a feature of stacks, they're like, well, how does that work? How can you get yield on something that, you're not putting your asset up at risk? So even within crypto in and of itself, as more crypto natives are getting away from centralized things, the opportunity for them to understand what decentralization means has huge ramifications for Bitcoin and obviously stacks, right? So I think that overall, despite where we're at, the bear markets end. They do not last. They suck. You're seeing right now, like the coin that has everyone's attention in terms of price action is Litecoin. It just shot up out of nowhere. And that's going to be because someone somewhere knows something, more than likely. And you start to see these things within bear markets, even where you'll see projects start to lead recoveries or start recovering themselves, and it generates interest. And that's just proof that this isn't like the final bear market for crypto. Even if someone thought that, they would be thinking wrong anyway. But there's proof all around that this is still going on. So what it allows us to do is it gives us the opportunity to continue to grind and build, but it also gives us the opportunity to educate. And anyone who's in this space who wants to find a way to make a way for themselves, you find a problem and you solve it. And the education problem in this space is ripe for people to jump in there and start making the things that people need so they can understand. The user experience part, even speaking with my own wife today, she brought it up. How does a normal person go and just learn about all of these wallets and transferring and addresses, and how do you change fiat to crypto? There's improvement to be had in there. And right now, for most people, the key to unlocking that door is education. The tech will come. The tech that makes these things more familiar to the market is being developed. I think we see that most clearly in stacks with Rider ID. And there's probably some others I'm not thinking of, but the device they're working on is so huge for crypto in general, not just stacks. The idea of being able to easily self-custody and easily make transactions, and it's a device that looks kind of cool that people are going to want. The huge ramifications. So I think it's a very interesting time as always. And I think that while it doesn't feel like an opportune time, it most certainly is. And for the people who are tuned in right now, if you want to focus, if you want to be successful, buy when you don't want to buy when no one else is buying. If you can't buy, find friends, find mentors, start building stuff. because users are coming, and the more users you capture, the more successful the product will be. If Elon Musk makes his own phone to compete with Apple and Google, try to stop Twitter on uh, their stores, why wouldn't it be something that is just completely crypto friendly? Something like that would drive adoption. Why wouldn't he do that? If I think he's going to do that, they think he's going to do that. So then they're going to speed up their crypto adoption. So that in and of itself is going to bring even more users. So yeah, engagement's low. It's dead right now. The prices make you sick, especially if you bought anywhere near the tops. But that's all noise. Focus on the signal. I probably talked too much and lost my original point, but that's where I'm at.
How is everyone today?
All good, bro. How you doing?
Not bad, not bad. Just got up this morning, headed down to the beach for a swim. Came across a water dragon. I'll send Doc a picture of it a bit later.
I'm looking forward to it.
Hey, good conversation. I like some of the points just made then. There's pretty exciting stuff happening, particularly around Ryder. But I got a question. Like, we don't mind buying a ton of ETH. Back in the ICO days, you buy a stack of ETH, 50 ETH, drop it into this. People drop ETH into everything. What's the go with everyone just sitting around on their Bitcoin? Seriously. I mean, there's applications out there where you can use your Bitcoin, you can spend your Bitcoin, you can do things with your Bitcoin. And I think nearly everyone, all of us are probably guilty. We're just locked away our Bitcoin. So we're not having much fun just sitting around on the Bitcoin. So I think it's, what makes everyone want to just flip their ETH around, but they don't want to flip their Bitcoin around?
It's easy, right? It's because Bitcoin is Bitcoin and ETH is ETH. As of right now, people who are in Bitcoin, most people just look at it as, okay, this is money, or this is a store of value, or this is an inflation hedge, and I'm gonna hold it and accumulate as much as possible. Where ETH, the way you made money with ETH is by leveraging smart contracts to make projects. So that's how you got the ICOs in the first place. So, and I'm always going to take things back to stacks because that's where I feel like so much potential lies. But that's where the potential for unlocking Bitcoin comes from, right? It comes from leveraging it through stacks. It comes through stacks DeFi. It comes through, Bitcoin NFTs. It comes from stacks being able to further integrate with Bitcoin and all of the applications that come from that. So I think for most Bitcoiners, there's just not a whole lot to do with it. Bitcoin price is a great way to look at other cryptos relative to it, but you can't really do a whole lot with it other than buy it, hold it, and wait for it to go up in value, right? I think that's my answer anyway.
I think a lot of it as well, Gordon, sorry, is remember that also Bitcoin, as you said, is the best store of value, like, over long periods of time. We're not talking about like all right, definitely from cycle to cycle, so 4 to 5 years range, certainly for 10 to 15 years range, as we can see at the moment. So in long-term savings as well. So there is definitely reasons to hold on to Bitcoin, because people not using it, remember, also adds to the whole point of people not using it, people not selling it, people making it scarce. It's not really available. So it does add to some of that value proposition in some way, people holding on to Bitcoin. But definitely, I mean, on the flip side of things, there is so much more applications which Bitcoin could be used in, and that's what obviously what drew a lot of us to Stacks as a project. We know there is obviously other Bitcoin side chains. We know there is Lightning, also RGB, which is smart contracting for Bitcoin, another attempt at smart contracting for Bitcoin. So there's lots of different things out here. For me, it's always been a thing of, all right, we're doing all this other stuff over here, right? And as some of you have heard me say before, right, everyone that kind of like the ETH so-called maxis, right, shall we say, right, we need that. They have even forgotten that Vitalik built this thing to be something that interoperates with Bitcoin, and a lot of it has been. Do you know what? I don't want to spread any further like that, right? So I need to choose my words carefully, but in just my opinion, a lot of it has just been co-opted by these organizations, three-letter organizations, and public messages and FUD, right? And I say a lot of the time, if we go all the way back to the original kind of ETH launches, early ETH, right, when proof of work mining became something that people all of a sudden had a problem with. You know, one of the biggest things somebody put out, I forgot who it was the other day. One of the Bitcoiners put out a tweet about, and I responded to it, but it was a tweet about Greenpeace, or maybe it was you, Jack. I'm sorry, it was somebody in the Stacks or Mine ecosystem put out a thing about Greenpeace and about how Greenpeace had actually, since they come out against Bitcoin, had actually been losing more and more followers ever since that day, and they just continue to lose followers, right, while people continue to adopt Bitcoin. So it's, the irony of that is quite funny, because also when that happened during that time, I think that was like 2015 maybe, and remember that you can't go to Satoshi and say, let's change this. You can't go to the Bitcoiners and say, let's move to proof of stake, right? Clearly, that was block size was, right? Let's move to proof of stake. And with Vitalik, he obviously moved to proof of stake under that pressure. And that's what a lot of people that are coming in now, they think it's all about Vitalik being all this green guy, right? Vitalik was fighting back at the beginning. Vitalik was like, I'm not changing for proof of work. Yeah. But remember, when you're a person and you've got these three-letter agencies, fucking these oligarchs, and you've also got, the world's biggest green activation, going at you, there's a point, bro. There's got to be a point where you squeeze in it. And for me, that's what's happened with Ethereum. So a lot of Ethereum, as I said, maxis, they don't really realize how much Vitalik himself either is or was at the time. Yeah. The whole ethos of Ethereum was supposed to be centered around Bitcoin, but then it became a competitor. And because it has a CEO, that CEO has to run with it being the competitor, which is what we see today. So yeah, I've got a couple of requests up here. Let me add some people up. Sorry, guys. But yeah, I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion on this as well. Where do you kind of think Bitcoin falls? Or where do you think the FTX FUD has been hitting Bitcoin, or how it's affected Bitcoin? Is that people getting rugged, or? So yeah.
I'm still
you're
here.
there. You're there. I think Doc got rugged, but yeah, and I think Scarlett just got rugged, so I think I jumped back in. Starman, you have been added as a speaker.
Yeah, and that's sorry, I got to jump out into a meeting, but talk to you
Cool.
guys later. Look forward to further conversations.
Yeah, bro. All good. All good. We'll catch up in a bit. So, anybody else, Starman, you got any thoughts there on FTX and how the FTX situation has affected Bitcoin? Damn. All right, we might have to move on to the next article up there in the nest. So one of the next articles I posted up there was a Bitcoin magazine article. The state will stifle inflation unless we opt out with Bitcoin. What does that? What does that draw to your mind when you hear a headline like that?
I didn't have a chance to read that article. That's an interesting idea, though. Well, we're seeing it now, right? How much more further along would we be in this space if people weren't worried about nebulous and unclear SEC regulations in the United States, for instance, right? I mean, you have the largest market, potentially being, stifled in real time because people don't really know if the things they want to build are going to be compliant with regulations that at best haven't been written yet, at worst can be interpreted a certain way and get you in a bunch of trouble. Um, and really the state doesn't, in general, the state's not much of an innovator, is it? I mean, the push for CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, are the most innovative and the most at speed, I've ever seen government really move, short of, when they started the pandemic measures, right? I mean, crypto is so young, and you've already have over 105 countries in various stages of CBDC development, with some already having been deployed in places like China, and I believe it was in Nigeria. It was in an African country where they tried one, and the people were like, "Nah, no thanks. We're not playing around with that." Um, so, yeah, just in general, though, the state is terrible in terms of innovation as a rule of thumb. The governing bodies move too slowly to innovate, uh, and you're seeing that on a smaller level with like Twitter, right? The big thing with Twitter is, 3/4 of the employees were fired or let go or laid off when Elon Musk took over, and Twitter's sitting here operating the same. So in that you see, wow, how many of these people were necessary for this company to function in the first place? How many of them were basically collecting a paycheck to do not a whole lot, and then how many of them are actually counterproductive by alienating, minimum 50% of users at any given time with their policies? That's the state. That's just a smaller version of it. So yeah, I think that they're definitely, if we don't opt out, if we don't look to make choices now and build better things now, not only will the state stifle innovation, their ability to stifle innovation will be greater than it currently is, as they inflict more effective control mechanisms over their populations, like central bank digital currencies, which we see right now. I wrote a blog earlier today, and in it I said, short of like things like natural disasters and things like war, CBDCs are probably the biggest threat that we face, as humans in the world right now, and most certainly as it applies to what we're doing here in crypto.
There we go. Doc's back in. Yeah, sorry guys, just added back in, Doc. Yeah, 100%, bro. 100%. I mean, you hit the nail on the head of everything that you were just saying. Like, it applies. It applies to all of it, bro. And I think
Yeah,
we need to be wary of that.
it's true. Like ever since really understanding, when I came into crypto, it was after a failed business, and I needed to make a pretty good sum of money to pay property taxes that year. And it just so happened that, Bitcoin finally caught my attention with price action. I'm like, okay, this is where I need to be, right? Alluding to what you were saying earlier on how some people get into crypto. As I started learning more, it became apparent that we would have a time frame in which we would have a certain amount of hands-off attitude by the state, and then we would face increasing, regulation. And once they realized what was really at stake, then outright vision. And I think at minimum, we're riding on that increased regulation point. But since we know that nothing ever remains static, hopefully we're at enough of an inflection point with the way that people view their news sources and their politicians and their pundits and all of these things that kind of make the state what it is, that there's enough people who are either willing to risk everything to continue to try to build out and operate in this space, or enough people to be like, you know what, we really don't care. We have to try to change this. This isn't just. This is like trying to stop the internet in its infancy. We're doing really stupid things. I think we're about at that point now where we have to see things like that start to happen, because truthfully, once the CBDCs come out, If Bitcoin is still allowed to exist as a form of competition to a central bank digital currency, the market's going to decide overwhelmingly for Bitcoin. It might take a matter of a few years, but I can tell you this about centralized authority and centralized power, and we learned this from history. Power loves power for power's sake. So it doesn't matter who you are and what you believe and how you live your life. If you have a lackadaisical attitude about individual freedom right now because things haven't affected you yet, you haven't been censored, you haven't lost your job for because of a witch hunt, you haven't had any of these things happen to you. Trust me, when the government can control exactly what you do with your money to the point that they can keep you locked in your apartment against your will because you cannot spend any money even to get public transportation, people will choose Bitcoin over that. Obviously, it's not in the state's interest to allow it to exist if that's the direction they want to go. So I think we're really at that first inflection point here, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
100%. Doc, you got any thoughts on that? Because I know you got a little bit rugged earlier.
Yeah, I got rugged there for a minute, so I was catching bits and pieces as we were going. The parts I did catch from what Jack was saying, I completely agree with. I didn't catch him saying this, but this is kind of how I personally feel about like the way people spend on ETH versus how they spend on Bitcoin. I mean, people look at Bitcoin as money, like financial security. And the way I see people look at ETH is more of like a gamble, more like playing the lottery, or more like buying like almost like in-game items, so to speak. That's kind of how I feel on the whole ETH versus Bitcoin topic there. If that makes sense to any of you at all. Other than that, I really don't have much to add.
Okay, so pretty roundabout opinions there anyway. Pretty rounded, opinions there from Jack. And also Doc, I get your analogy definitely. ETH, as I said, has become more kind of like a speculators and an experimentalist kind of entry into the crypto world. And kind of that's how I'd phrase it, like speculation going on, and a lot of experimentation going on, because there is this technology that people can, quite easily apply to concepts of money and shares, shall we say, or investment vehicles, and other things that come along with the DeFi space. So yeah, I definitely think Ethereum again. It launched as an experiment to try and build out a system that could initially work with Bitcoin, and we've seen that vision has deteriorated in terms of its link to Bitcoin, which is what I believe many of the original Bitcoin developers feared as to why Ethereum was not created as a smart contract layer for Bitcoin, and why they rejected Vitalik's original proposals, maybe. Because at the time, I remember there was a lot of tweets and a lot of talk going around, like on Bitcoin Talk. You can see all of these old threads and stuff with people feeling that Ethereum was pretty controversial because it wasn't like a layer one that was directly connected to Bitcoin, and it wasn't a layer two for Bitcoin. So there was a lot of skepticism around the motives for creating Ethereum. And Vitalik's kept pretty. Although some people might say Vitalik's a complete ETH maxi, and he's pumping his coin or whatever. Vitalik sometimes we see it pretty erratic, but sometimes people say things, and then on the other side, he could seem pretty centered because, again, when I look at Vitalik's tweets, I don't see ETH maxi. I see Bitcoin maxi that is has love for his baby, his project, and he's trying to see it survive. But he's not a Bitcoin denier. It's really, really weird with Vitalik, I think. But all right, with that being said, let's move on to another interesting article here. So Bitcoin
Bitcoin.org's Cobra must unmask to challenge Craig Wright's legal costs. So this is a pretty interesting case that I found going on this week. Obviously, it's been a long-standing case and a long-standing thing with Craig Wright in the crypto community claiming to be Satoshi. And one of the progressions in one of the cases is that a few years ago, he took a case to court with no respondent, and he won by default because nobody responded to basically provide evidence to say that he was not the owner of the Bitcoin white paper. So this only applies to the UK, guys, right? So in the UK, if there is no respondent, you can win. It happens in the US as well, but if there's no respondent to a claim can be won by default. And this is basically what happened, right? He claimed that the Bitcoin white paper was, in fact, his own, and he had created it, and that everybody that displayed it, including Bitcoin.org, should take the white paper down from the website. And what's kind of happened now with this progression is in that original claim, Craig Wright claimed for costs, his legal costs, in the application to the court, and legal costs were disputed. So it's kind of like another default thing now where, because the legal costs were disputed, the person has to come forward to basically identify themselves in a way to say that I am the person who is disputing the legal claim of the costs and everything else. Now, the problem with doing that, obviously, is Cobra is a pseudonymous entity, shall we say, or person. So that is the only name that we know them by, Cobra, and it's clear that they have legal representatives to have been able to responded to, the legal cost claim. So what it seems has happened is there is again a kind of de facto default way that Iraq could go on to win this again. But then what normally happens in these kind of cases, I noticed in the articles that I've read about it, is that in these kind of cases, normally what would happen is the respondent just doesn't respond at all, or the named respondent just doesn't respond at all. So I think it's because Cobra or his legal team or their legal team has now responded about the costs, it kind of makes it a default. They have to identify themselves. And it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens if that does happen, and also if it doesn't happen. Because if it does happen, obviously they would then need to prove that Craig Wright is wrong, and the original judgment that he's the owner of the white paper, the creator of the original white paper, would have to be set in court. And then also there is, like, if they don't come out and say anything, then the legal costs stay towards them, and whether or not on how that action could be brought against that person could reveal that person's identity. So it's quite interesting. Let me know what you guys think about it.
I'm just curious. I don't follow the Craig Wright stuff too closely. I'm just curious why no judge at this point, all the time this man spends in court, just orders. Why don't they just order him to remove one Satoshi from the Satoshi wallet?
Because he can't. Because he can't, fam. I wasn't even going to say nothing on this because I don't want to get in legal trouble, but he can't. he fucking can't do it.
That's all it has
It's
to
not
do.
His wallet, not his keys.
Put this all to rest. I mean, it's just done. Just one Satoshi, just whatever. Send it wherever you want. And all the controversy goes to rest, and everyone owes you a lot of money for doubting you. Everyone wins.
And that was part of the original legal case. Sorry, the Kleinman case. There's a few. Do you know what? Like, Craig Wright's been probably all over the world now trying to do this thing, him being Satoshi. And most of the courts, if not, I think all of them, apart from this one case in the UK, which, when he ran with clearly the PR for it, even though he says that he never did any PR for it, it seems that some PR was clearly run to say that he had won this case and he is Satoshi, and he uses it as proof plenty of times, that he's Satoshi. So it's like in all of these other courts though, bro, like, they actually tested the theory of you owning this, you having the ownership. It was very interesting because before then, obviously, we didn't have this form of ownership, and it wasn't tested in the courts, but it has been tested very many a time, and it's always come down to this, not your keys, not your concept, isn't it? Like, if it's yours, then just move some, like, and I know because I showed him about the part of the famous climbing case was that there was an address on the list of addresses that Craig had claimed for. Quite a few of them turned out not to be his, but there was one particular address, 16 Coup, the address, because it starts with 16COU SZ, I think it is. So yeah, 16 Coup, and 16 Coup actually sent a transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain saying Craig is a liar about 100 times in the block. So so yeah, it's funny, and he lost the case after that.
Yeah, he's just ridiculous, man. And at some point, he'll be one of two things. He'll be completely ignored, disregarded as a fraud, or he's just going to be like this old crazy cat lady version of Satoshi. There's like the real Satoshi, and then there's the crazy cat lady. That's who he's going to be. I mean, he doesn't deserve any respect because it's just so simple to prove it, and he just won't, and because he can't, like Doc said. So yeah, he's a clown. I can't wait till we don't have to hear about him. I kind of hold him in the same regard as I do like the BitConnect people, right? Like he's just a part of that era, and it's a shame because he's a smart dude. He probably could make something pretty cool. I don't know a whole lot about BSV, but I know some smart people who are like, man, the technology in this is pretty awesome, and it'd probably be pretty cool if you didn't have the creator running around claiming to be Satoshi.
Yeah, man, 100%, 100%, bro. Like I think Doc got rugged again there. Sorry. Yeah, but 100%, man. I mean, the dude's got crazy qualifications. He clearly knows stuff in it, right? And let's be honest, right? His work is referenced amongst the works that Satoshi looked at in his building Bitcoin. So he was mentioned. He is, again, give him his. He is, a very smart and intelligent man. Yeah. So but with all that being said, it's like, bro, you're all this smart and you lost the private keys, or you forgot the private keys, bro, and like that's the whole point. And like it's a lot of addresses that you supposedly lost these private keys for, bro. It's like, yeah, bro.
Yeah, I'm a gigabrain, and stuff. I'm just really forgetful, man. I just misplaced all those keys. Oh, come on. Now, what else we want to talk about? We got some. I personally wouldn't mind. I don't know a whole lot about it right now, but I'm watching Solana tank, and some. There was some claims made that during those recent outages, it was because they were kind of using Sol to launder money. Does anyone know anything more about that, other than the fact that it's probably going to zero?
Do you know what? I've heard so much about what's going on with Solana, right? People keep telling me about what's going on with Solana, and I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. I think I've maybe become desensitized to the whole thing because sometimes you just have to switch off from what people are saying. Like, and the thing is, yeah, I think, I mean, I had my own concerns when, they had this whole stop start moment, the whole big pause, the blockchain, shit. When I saw that, I was like, yeah, like, like as long as this bull runs on, it'll probably be good. But once the bull run dies down again, I'm always looking for, as things come down, what is working, what's crumbling as things come down. And a lot of people kept saying to me, oh well, you know what, Solana seems to be holding well, like and something in the back of my mind was just always just like, yeah, but like this stop start situations that happen like third time, fourth time, or whatever. And it just really been like, okay, so what is propping this up right about now? Is it all these people that are flooding into the NFTs and on this chain that are just keeping it going? Because again, much like what you said earlier about the Bitcoin argument, right? Of what you can do with it. It's like, okay, how many people can create NFTs on this chain? Like, and yeah, there's all these other projects like gaming projects and other things being built on the chain, but I kept, again, my thought is going back to, okay, so these guys are investing in projects that are built on this chain. So the same guys who created the chain are investing in the projects that are being built on this chain, projects that aren't
a lot of, again, I don't want to down any projects, like, because again, people build what they build and they innovate. So, you know, I saw so many of these, so, you know, from the Soul Starter and all of these other things coming out, and to me it was just pretty much like, okay, how is this happening? Because they're investing in these same startups. These startups are then getting pumped, you know, literally the hell out of these startups are getting pumped. Because, you know, even the entry points on FTX, I don't know how many projects people have looked at on FTX or Solana throughout the bull run, but even the entry points for most people to get in on those sales was high, and lots of tokens were going to FTX and FTT, and, you know, so it was like, I just looked at it, and for me it just smelled a bit, this is just me personally, in my opinion, it just smelled a bit fishy. So I never loaded up the boat on Solana. Like, I loaded it enough to unload at the right time, and I unloaded probably the rest of it, you know, at double my buy price. So yeah, I don't really know about anything else to do with Solana after that. So when we come around to this FTX thing happening, it was just kind of like, oh wow, and then, you know, the rest of the day went on, and I saw people talking about it. I was like, you know, and I saw how deeply it went. It was like, wow. So yeah, but I was never really, let's say, a fan too much of Solana.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It has watching the blockchain shut down like that a few times. You know, that's enough to keep me away from anything. And what's probably the most interesting thing about it is that Solana is such a huge competitor, really, for stacks, right? If we're being honest, as is Ethereum in general, and a lot of the you know, like AVAX and Arbiters and so forth. The Arbitrum, they're all kind of competing, and then so when you see Solana at the end of the day, you say, okay, well, this is centralized. I'm really more interested in decentralization. Now you see ETH, which is very centralized and highly vulnerable to censorship. It really, this is getting back to it. You know, stacks, decentralization, Bitcoin, decentralization. I think the market entrants now are going to be looking more towards that end of the spectrum. And so, you know, as someone in stacks, I think what we have to do as a community and builders in the space is to, again, with the education, but we also have to be we have to understand what a decentralized blockchain is. That's why it's important to look at, you know, all of the education that someone like Hero Gamer gives in terms of and how important SIPs are and voting on the protocol, you know, the big Stacks 2.1 upgrade, to really understand, like, if you're in an ecosystem like this, you are a part of it, and you have you have a say in how things can go in the future if it's a big enough change that it warrants a SIP. And so not only do we educate, but we also, for the builders, we need to decentralize things more, quicker the better. You know, I think there's a lot of opportunity in, you know, improving how we're doing mining. So I support Stacks 2.1, right? I think that a lot of people, as we watch this bear market play out, when they come to stacks, it's going to be a lot of ETH people, a lot of Sol people, and they're going to respect the decentralization. So on our end, we really do have to make sure that we're working towards that end, building towards that end, educating towards that end, and just we run with it. I think that overall, it makes me very bullish on the blockchain for stacks all day long, man. Like, I think we are going to get a lot of crypto natives headed this way. It's just a matter of, there's so many chains. There's, well, not chains, rather there's just so many tokens in general. That's the only thing I can really say against the idea of tokens, is that there's so many, and you just have names of tokens, immediately think, oh, this is just another ERC20, or this is just something on an AVAX. When you hear STX, you don't think of what it really is, so you don't really look into it. And this, as people start looking into it, that's when it's going to click, like, oh wow, this is this whole different thing. It's bringing application to Bitcoin. It's unlocking Bitcoin. And the way to get people's attention is more users, which drives price action, which drives crypto degens to come along. We saw that play out extraordinarily clear with BNS Mania a while back. That was a group of whales that came in, saw the potential, fill their bags, and now they're just waiting. So if anyone here is bearish, keep that in mind. Like, you just had a lot of long-time crypto degens who've made a lot of money position themselves. So you position yourself in any way possible. I truly believe that's important. Not necessarily saying, oh, buy this and hold it so you can trade it later. I mean, if you're interested in crypto on a deeper level than just an investment vehicle, you should be bullish on stacks, period, because the masses are going to come. When DeFi is truly unlocked on stacks, when you really have DeFi for Bitcoin, people are going to come. And so overall, I think this whole debacle is extraordinarily bullish on stacks, as long as we continue to have a great community, have people in stacks that are really trying to do the right things, trying to make useful things for people, things that matter. The Web3 is the name we use for a paradigm that's about to take over the world. And it's useful to think about what's that ultimately going to look like. And it's going to look like DeFi. It's going to look like, the metaverse. It's going to look like DAOs. It's going to look like Bitcoin. So we need to focus on that and think about what's coming and prepare ourselves accordingly. And that's how we win. That's how we succeed. That's how we drive adoption. If you're here now, you are most certainly early, not just in the macro sense, but in the sense of the stacked blockchain. And that's what we have to be ready for. So at this point, if I know for me personally, I used to use MetaMask constantly. I'll never use MetaMask again. Honestly, I am hugely turned off by ETH now that it's proof of stake, right? So just in general. So other people are going to be that way, and they just don't know we exist. They just don't know. If they see STX, they think it's just a token. So if you want to help, if you want to succeed, if you want to grow, if you want to make it, so to speak, take that to heart and position yourself as someone who can help others succeed, others grow, and others make it. And it's going to happen because you're going to have a lot of people coming and they're going to be ready, and this thing's going to blow up. So that's what I think about Soul and how it looks right now and how it's going to affect us.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that definitely is true to what is exactly kind of going on. Like, it is really about kind of like staying true to that original vision, man. And I think that's again what draws us into Bitcoin, what draws us into stacks. It's looking at the reality of the situation, and certainly the more development that is happening now, to on that inflection point where you said you've got this movement going on in the world, this change of everything going on, in one way or another, and then you've now got this concept that people didn't understand or haven't understood up until, as you said earlier, like their bank account gets closed, or their water gets shut off, or they can't get electric, or the electric bills are sky high, or whatever it is. People can't leave their house, they can't go and buy a loaf of bread. They'll be given a certain amount of money to use, and that's it. This amount of money that goes onto your rent. And hey, you payday, get a little notification, hey, it's payday today, your money's gone in, but this is how much you have over to spend because your rent's gone, your taxes have been paid, which gets done anyway, so you're used to that one. So you come in, you're seeing your paycheck like major short, bro, in net. Yeah, you're looking at the net on your paycheck and you're like, shit, like, where the hell's all the money going? You're thinking it's something else, emergency tax codes or some other shit. Right, and then you realize like that it's got your list of groceries there already, bro. Just say to you, like, this is how much milk you can buy. This is what's been put aside for bread. No luxuries this month.
It's pretty interesting, Nat, when you think about one of the reasons why the state is ultimately going to hate Bitcoin and always choose the CBDC, central bank digital currency, over it, is because the state really can't afford transparency. Can you imagine if like you saw where your taxes went and you could track it on a blockchain? The government would hate that. They would
That's why
absolutely.
the government will never use it. Shoot,
Yeah.
I got rugged there for a second. I could hear everything that was going on, but wouldn't let me speak again. But I just wanted to chime in with what you had just spoken about, man. And I think what you said there is something that everyone really needs to keep in mind about how Stacks is more than just another token. You know, it's more than just a quick way to try and gamble and make a quick buck. You know what I mean? Um, I honestly believe we everyone currently building in Stacks right now will probably be here for the long run. I mean, and I'm super glad we have people like you who are 100% bearish or bullish in this bear community. So I love it.
Yeah, it's just bear market sucks so bad, and I'm telling you, like this is only my second one, so I'm definitely not an expert. But when you see like the level of crypto Twitter engagement that's going on right now, I promise you, if this isn't bottom, we're really close. So I mean, it's going to stop. It's eventually going to end. It's going to turn around. So it's easy for me to be bullish in that respect, to recognize that everything in life is cyclical anyway, and that includes markets. But what we're actually doing in this particular market, in this particular blockchain, is just got so much potential. There's in the stuff that we're building right now are things that's going to be useful to people in their lives. And people, I think the way that they're going to land with CBDCs is with a UBI, a universal basic income, right? I think that's going to be a big promise, probably some debt forgiveness, something like that. But if we're messaging and we're like, man, okay, look, I know free money is great or whatever, but through things like DeFi, based on Bitcoin, that can produce real yield on the money that you have and earn, or even something as simple as being able to deposit, STX into a staking contract and get a yield in Bitcoin that far exceeds anything you're going to get from a bank, and that your money is just as secure in that smart contract than it is, probably arguably more so, at a bank. The only risk you're taking on is price action of the coin, which doesn't mean anything other than you're still getting the same percentage of Bitcoin no matter what. You know, when people understand that, it takes you back to first principles like, well, why do people invest in stocks and make risky investments in the first place? Oh, yeah, it's because fiat sucks. It's because if you just hold on your fiat and you save it, you lose money. You don't get to retire. You don't get to hand anything to your children, right? Like you're just screwed. So we're on the precipice, man. So every day that we're in this bear market, I'm going to dedicate myself to trying to make sure that I'm doing what I can to make people understand this whole better way exists, and
And
it's out there, and you just have to learn.
and to add to that as well, and again, yeah, right. So again, I know this is a stack space. We're running this as STX LDN, um, from London. Working to kind of build within the stats community and bring back the education and everything to the thoughts to Bitcoin, the mindset to Bitcoin. So that is again not to take away from any of the other projects that are building with a Bitcoin centric focus. In the end of the day, as you said there, Jack, there is plenty of other projects around that are working towards decentralization. But I think for me, when a project is working with Bitcoin in mind, is totally different from a project that is working towards decentralization. A project that is, a lot of projects that are working towards decentralization, although they might, be have some good ideas, shall I say, none of them are Bitcoin, and they are kind of just competitors to Bitcoin. I know people feel like that with Stacked. I know some people feel like that with RSK. I know some people feel like that with other things to do with Bitcoin, or that like Counterparty. Even there's big forth about Counterparty, even though Counterparty has some of the biggest Bitcoin maxis.
Oh
So
yeah.
so
I
yeah, so it's just to say, yeah, like you said, that this is where we've all kind of come together to feel that vision can be achieved. And as you said, with the DeFi protocols and stuff, the way how Stacks itself works, and again, they're not taking away from anything else, but the way how Stacks itself works is a probable way for you to be able to, as you know, redistribute or to have Bitcoin savings that work with a yield. You know,
Oh yeah, absolutely, dude.
definitely, yeah. So you know, yeah, 100. I mean, I agree with you on all of that, but I just wanted to just point out, yeah, definitely, we shouldn't you know, I think we're all open minded anyway in Stacks, you know,
Oh
in that
yeah,
sense.
I look at
So
it this way, man.
yeah,
Like I talk to so many people in crypto and in the stacks community in general. What I've identified is what I like to call like the Bitcoin ethos, right? If you think about like when you're talking to people, you automatically know if they're kind of personify the Bitcoin ethos. So the way I look at that is, okay, I see eye to eye with people who get it like that. Like that's cool. If you don't see eye to eye, I'm not your enemy. In fact, I'm probably going to try to convert you. But the Bitcoin ethos is the core of it. You know, I just look at it kind of like I did an interview with Jamil a long time ago. I think, well, not a long time ago. It was like back in August or September. And you know, he basically said something that stuck with me, and it's true. He's like, I'm working on stacks because, as far as I can tell, it's the most likely way to advance Bitcoin in terms of having this layer on top of Bitcoin that does things to empower Bitcoin. That's where I look at it. So ultimately, I'm a Bitcoin ethos maxi. If I could go ahead and coin that term, I think that's the way I look at it.
Fireburst, you're down there with your hand up, man. You don't have to put your hand up, man. You don't have to put your hand up.
Yeah, but you
Come
know, I'm so polite. I just want to quickly say thank you to Stax, the host, Atlas, and the Doctor, for having this space. I'm very pleased to be here, and to be able to gain further knowledge with regards to Stax. The one thing that I do want to share, is that I'm very focused when it comes to Bitcoin. For me, there is an absolute separation between Bitcoin and all the other cryptocurrencies. I'm sorry. And I will keep saying that until the cows come home, because there is no connection. It's very, very separate. It's almost like there's cryptocurrencies. So you can have Ethereum, Solana, Luna, and all of that. And then there's Bitcoin. We are our own vehicle. Within Bitcoin, we have stacks. We have these other things that are based on Bitcoin, Bitcoin centric focus, which means you're transparent, you're honest, and you're not about get rich fast and rug people. So once we can get people to recognize that, half the battle's won. The problem is people, our own people, are connecting us with those other clues. They're saying, yeah, well, there's Bitcoin and then there's Ethereum. No, that's just Bitcoin. Ethereum is over there. You're all lumped together. What we do as Bitcoiners is totally different. And I keep saying to people, you cannot go to Walmart and buy a loaf of bread with your ETH or your F or whatever you want to call it. But you can go there with your sats and get something. And you can go and buy a house with your Bitcoin. It doesn't work with the other cryptos. They have to convert to fiat. Bitcoin, there's no conversion, and that's the beauty of it. When Stacks is now trying to bring that real dynamic energy to show the creative side, the other dynamic side, it is controversial, but you just have to keep pushing it because the education is there. Bitcoin is magical. It was never created to just remain the same. It was created and it was meant to evolve. And if you evolve, that's how you have longevity. And if we don't evolve, and if we don't have those other creative sides to the blockchain, it will stagnate and it will always be magical, but that gloss will be a little bit dimmed. What I would say is that we have to get the basics in place and we have to keep reinforcing why are we different? Why stats different? Why? Well, we're honest. Close it. That's it. You drop the mic, walk away. Nothing to say. Hello. Because none of the others can say that. The conversation's over. You lie. We don't. We do things publicly. Everything in Stacks, it's very transparent. You can read about it. You can get information. Talk to people that are in it, and they'll explain it to you. Go into those other cryptos, you speak to somebody, and they're half the time they're scratching their head. Well, I don't really know, you know. It's like, what? You're putting your money in something that you're scratching your head about and you don't really know? Frightening. It's a gambler's paradise. I must admit, I'm not a gambler. I refuse to gamble. I prefer to work for my coinage. The proof of work is me. I want to be my boss. There's no risk. That's why I believe we have to keep saying Bitcoin centric focus, which means we're better than all the others. There's no comparison. Get off the bus and come and join, because through education, we're all going to make it. And I place the mic, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Fireburst. Wicked, wicked intro there again, as usual, man. Definitely coming with the fire there. And yeah, definitely, man, 100% true. I mean, as I said earlier in the space, and you've heard me say in many spaces before, you know, when we take it back to where this all started, I mean, we can go through all of this block wars, we can go through all of this other stuff, but, you know, the point is that even, quite funny enough, you know, the fact that we're talking about Craig Wright and BSV and stuff, even those projects, yeah, are closer to being Bitcoin centric than like 99.9% of the other tokens and chains and whatever else that is out here, you know, like so it's funny, it's quite funny because, you know, there are the methods of the fork of Bitcoin, and as you know, with Stacks is a separate layer one, we know, but you know, it's pretty much seen as a Bitcoin side chain, so there's the side chain approach. We know we have Lightning on the layer 2, and there's other solutions that people are working on layer 2 that I talked about. And as I said, RGB is a pretty interesting project that I've got more interested in recently through meeting a few people around that are working with RGB. Although it is, I believe the biggest problem with RGB at the moment that everybody says that it's only on the test net. So I suppose when it goes mainnet, that will be another solution within this sphere, or talking about Bitcoin focused solutions and Bitcoin centric solutions. So those are the things that, you know, the core, as you said before, Jack, like the core kind of values come from. And it's funny that we talk about values when we're talking about valuing. And as I said yesterday in your space, Fibers, valuation of energy itself, you know, which is a part of Bitcoin. The way that Bitcoin actually operates itself is, you know, being a unit of account. And when we look at the unit of account and the trillions and you know, is I can't remember the term, sorry, but the alien term, sorry, for how big the amount of satoshis you know, like is out there. But you know, if you think of every satoshi to account for every unit of energy ever used on this planet, you know, you'd be using, the planet would be using this energy for a very long time and be able to account for all of it too. So so yeah, it's fascinating, definitely fascinating. And yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm not one for a scarcity mindset. And when it comes to Bitcoin, when it comes to crypto, when it comes to life in general, you know, there's so much waste, there's so much theft, there's so much greed. We're surrounded by these things all day, and the repercussions of those things that ripple on like, you know, water in a pond, right? It just, none of that has to exist. Once people start there, then you can have real progress made. You know, if you think about why things are expensive at the fundamental level, it's all a matter of energy, right? I mean, you need energy to make things, you need energy to transport things. In some cases, you need energy to consume other things that were also made. So you have so many vested interests that are situated in what seems to be these impenetrable castles that kind of like run things. You know, obviously big oil doesn't want us to find better alternatives to oil. obviously, you could take anything and you can be like, oh, well, this person doesn't want this. And here you have a bunch of Bitcoiners being like, say, bro, we're going to take some methane gas from that oil rig and we're going to use it to mine Bitcoin. Or say, we're going to mine Bitcoin from the energy that would be lost in a volcano. And you have all of this innovation, right? That's the key. That's how you escape this Plato's cave that we all find ourselves in the first place. So as a rule of thumb, when I'm sitting here when I'm following people or reading along Twitter or social media, the second I see someone operating out of a fiat mindset, I guess is the best way to put it, just the status quo, I'm immediately like, okay, that person is not going to make it. In terms of market share for Bitcoin and applications that can be built on Bitcoin, those are not people operating out of a fiat mindset. They're all going to make it. And a result of working on and building and utilizing this technology and leveraging it for the future, the end result of that is the destruction of these impenetrable castles and ultimately a more fair world. That's at the very core of everything that we're doing here. We're trying to make lived experience on this planet more fair for everyone. And you cannot do that in a fiat system. The fiat system has been made to safeguard the few at the expense of the many. And I'm going to wrap this all up by just saying that is the power of decentralization. When you get people there, the rest of this is easy. It's just a matter of getting enough people there. All right, I do have to go. It's dinner time. Thanks. This has been a blast. I've had a good time.
Yes, thanks as always, Jack, for coming through, man.
Absolutely great blogger there, Jack, and great mind as well, Jack Binswitch. Make sure you follow him and go and check out his blogs on Sigil, which is a decentralized blogging platform. So yeah, you own all of your data, and that is also built on Stacks ecosystem.
Can I quickly say thank you, Jack, for has he gone? He's gone. Well, I'll say it even though he's gone. He said some amazing things. And I feel very excited. I've got to be very, very honest. We're living in such a bleak time of history. When we look at the underbelly of what's really happening in the world, there's not a lot of good out there. There really isn't. Because it's fiat based and fiat driven, so there's not a lot of good in the world. Bitcoin really is the breath of fresh air that we all need. Unfortunately, there's of us that are here that are able to recognize the power that is really at our fingertips. The fiat world despises Bitcoin. Why? Because it gives us freedom. It allows us to be individuals, and it allows us to come up with our own system of worth, of business, of education. All of these things are opposed to fiat. And if we're very honest, fiat, for me, stands for fear and fraud. And it is like all those other cryptocurrencies. We get rugged every day. Every day you go to work, you're getting rugged. You're paying taxes for what? Where does it go? I'm a European. The taxes that we pay, funding a war. Did I ask for a war? No, absolutely not. So to me, everything to do with fiat is to do with corruption. It's nothing to do with honesty. There's nothing about the fiat system that works. If you look at it, we were born into it. We had no choice. They didn't even educate us on it because they wanted to keep us dumb. They wanted us just to be addicted to the idea of it and don't question. So we spend our whole lives working towards something that's not going to happen. People work towards a retirement. Quite often they drop dead within 5 years. Where does the rest of the money go? It all ends up back with the government anyway. You pay death tax. It's a disgrace. With Bitcoin, suddenly everything is wiped clean. And it's not about how many Satoshis you have or Bitcoin. It's about the fact that you have access to it. That's what's so inspiring. when your Bitcoiners talking and working on a project, they never mention the word money. They're not saying, well, how much is that? No, they're just saying, well, what's the end goal? How are we going to get to it? It's never about that kind of fiat mindset. And that's what's so exciting. I've met so many people on their Bitcoin journey, and I'm now meeting more people within the Stacks community that are so inspired. And it's like, we were dying. We were all dying under fiat. Our creativity was just being drained away. You know, all the lies, the pandemic, the lockdown, all nonsense. And I have proof and receipts. So Bitcoin for me has been the one thing that has given me positivity. It's given me freedom. It's given me independence. And it's given me another option in life. What is life if you don't have options? It means you're under a dictatorship. And I believe we've all been blindsided for centuries. Bitcoin is a new shiny star, but it's something that's so magical and it will stand the test of time because the scarcity and how it's come into being. It's exciting. I just believe that we've got to get a few things clear within the whole community of Bitcoin. We've got to start elevating ourselves. And I'm always fighting with the maxis. I go all round Twitterverse and nobody gives me a harder time than the Bitcoin maxis. And I tell them straight, and then they rear up at me. I say, hey, I smell an awful lot of fiat in space, and they go at me. But it's true. They have Bitcoin in their pockets and a fiat mindset. Well, that's saucy to me because the two should never cross. They should never be crossed. They're separate. And as long as we keep elevating Bitcoin and making people recognize that we're not just a cryptocurrency, we are Bitcoin. Separate, different over here. We will educate you. We will help you change your life. We will help you find your creative edge. Stacks will take you on another level, another dimension. But the core is the truth and it's honesty. As long as we keep reinforcing that, people will come. Why? Because we lead by example. It's quite often not what you say, it's what you do. And if you do right, then people are going to want some of that. I know I'm doing it right because I'm meeting people every day and they're wondering, God, why is Fiber still positive? You know, I was broken during the week when I realised the world was locked down with the G20 summit saying that you can't fly unless you've got a COVID passport. Listen, I was absolutely broken. I was thinking, well, what's the point of me even trying to build my Bitcoin business if I can't? And then I recognised that, well, you know what? If I do well and get things organised and get the community right, we'll get a submarine and we will travel. They will not pin us down. We will find a way. The world is free. Nobody owns it. No fiat mindset can tell me that I can't travel anywhere without a COVID passport. I'll find a way. I know people. And that's only possible because of Bitcoin, because it's not going to be traced. We're going to be able to do things independently. The beauty of Bitcoin is that it's opening out a new world for all of us. It's amazing that in El Salvador, there's countries in Africa that have adopted Bitcoin quickly out of necessity. Hunger is a hard thing to deal with. So I believe that the fact that Stacks is here and taking it to that creative edge, delivering things that people didn't think was possible, is really going to set things alight. But there has to be clarity. People have to be open to receive. And if they don't receive it, it doesn't matter because you guys are focused and you have that belief. So once you keep focused and pushing, in the end, people will come across because what's the alternative? Crypto? Those are the coins where you're losing everything? No. People sometimes have to go through a lot of pain in order to get to the good stuff. We can educate so much. We can contribute and share so much with the people that are willing and open. As for all the others, they're going to have to go through their own journey. They're going to have to lose everything. They're going to have to be absolutely torched. And then when they come over, we'll say, hey, why did it take you so long? So I am excited about Stacks. And I believe that we just have to stay focused and just elevate ourselves. We are not connected to the other systems. It doesn't matter if you're in a club and there's an Ethereum or whatever. You can say, hi, break bread. But what you're doing is a hell of a lot classy. So you just have to remember that. That's my contribution. I'll place the mic.
Right. So just before we close out, there's one more article that I posted up. That I was just trying to post some additional context to that article as well. So if you look up in the nest, it's I think the second article, so the second from the right. But there's an article I posted up, like an op-ed article. Cryptocurrency isn't a smart investment and hasn't been for a while. And if you read through this, so this is another thing I hope Jack would have been here for as well to discuss this, but there's a lot of articles, people talking about these puff piece articles that are going out surrounding SBF and FTX, and really making it look like it's something else. And as you said there, Fireburst, putting Bitcoin in with the rest of everything else and trying to make it look like like this is a Bitcoin thing. And I don't know if any of you have time, maybe after the space, I was going to post a few screenshots from this actual article beneath it. But there are a few things in here that the article talks about, again, which is just trying to bring some kind of downer to, and not even using correct information. You think that CNBC by now, given all the interviews that they've had with Bitcoiners, can actually put out some kind of news that actually makes sense. So, so yeah, there's some talk in here, about Bitcoin being attractive for illicit activity, the same old stuff. Ethereum reducing energy consumption, and then putting Bitcoin at like, where is it? Bitcoin will continue to use a validation process where a single transaction requires enough energy to power the average American home for 2 months. Like, it's just a blatant lie, man. Like, the research has been done. Like, it's a blatant lie. So it's like, why are all of these? We know why, but all of these crazy agencies and media outlets, sorry, putting out this blatant direct FUD, and it ties back into the whole FTX situation, because every article is actually starting off talking about FTX, and then it goes into this like tirade of crypto and Bitcoin, like, and then starts to starts to talk about need of regulation and all of it is very much to after the ICOs and other significant events in Bitcoin, such as Mt. Gox. And we know like the kind of FUD keeps repeating itself. But this particular article I saw today, and I was just like, like, I can't believe that CNBC, like 2 days ago, I was watching CNBC, and they were saying a completely different thing than everything that is said in this article. So it's just like, yeah, as you said, Fibers, we've got to really, really knuckle down and actually, learn, what the actual changes here. And it seems to be that they're more concerned about the changes with Bitcoin and downplaying it, and then puffing up FTX and SBF as though this was just all some, freak accident with people's finances. So yeah, definitely need to stay vigilant.
I think that the complexity is that the media is controlled. So everything that we're being fed is controlled. It's all about sort of pushing the fiat mindset. So even when they're feeding us their narrative, we've got to recognize it's never going to be in the interest of Bitcoin. It's just not. Because underneath it all, if Bitcoin failed, fiat would be absolutely happy. Unfortunately, now that it's invented, it can't be uninvented. So Bitcoin, now that it's here, it has finally truly arrived. It can't disappear. All the other things can. So when we listen to the media, please, please, please do it with side eye, because there's nothing, there's like 90 I would say 95% of it is propaganda, and there is some truth, but it's very hidden and it's diluted, and it will never be in the celebration of Bitcoin, because as we get stronger and more people become aware of the power of Bitcoin and that we can live in a circular society, dictatorship, circular, where are those people going to be? They're going to be out of jobs. They are actually running to grab Bitcoin. And that's the tragedy. These people that work in the banks that say all these terrible things, they're the ones that are buying up Bitcoin as much as anyone else, because they know that it's the only real solution. And even though the fiat system is there, we are all networked into it. I know that. I am as well. The dream to me is to be smart enough to have a double, to have a dual system where you're able to manage your Bitcoin over there and your fiat covers everything else. So these articles, I think it's fantastic, Atlas, that we've got these things in the nest and that this space is recorded, because it means that I know that I'll be able to go back, read everything and really immerse myself, because I really want to be able to also invite key people over to the gateway for us to have a very open and discussion about stacks and what does it really mean for the future of Bitcoin, because to me that's a conversation also needs to be had. So thank you very much. Thank you, Atlas.
That was beautiful, Fireburst. I hate to interrupt there real quick, but my phone's at like 7% and it's bound to die on me any minute. So I'm gonna have to jump off for now. Thank you
Yeah, we were
guys
coming
for.
to a close anyway, Doc. So yeah.
All right. All right.
You want to close it out, Doc?
Honestly, I think Fireburst should close it out.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. No, you always do a great closing for the gateway. So
Okay. Well, before I close it, I do once again want to thank Stacks, the host, Atlas co-host, and the Doctor co-host, and for all of you that came. It's in numbers that we will grow, and I see we're having connection issues. The future is bright because we have Bitcoin. We are doing things with a Bitcoin centric focus. We keep focused, we'll keep growing. And thank you for this space. Thank you all. Bye bye.
thank you guys.
Thank you, everyone, for jumping in. Space is recorded. It'll be up there to listen back to if you missed out on any of it, and we'll be back again over the next week or two. So just look out for the announcements, because we are doing regular spaces. So look out for the announcements, because there's a few that we've got coming up as well. We've got some partnering with some other projects coming up, and then we've got announcements for Stacks London coming up as well. So there will be quite a few Twitter spaces and virtual spaces. Also, if you can, jump in our Discord. If you jump onto our Twitter page, then you'll see the Discord link at the top. Jump into our Discord and just conversate with us, man. Talk, and we're here, man. We're here, always listening. I don't even think the Discord link is up there anymore. But yeah, if you go to the website, then the Discord link is there. Or Doc, maybe you can share out a tweet real quickly with the Discord link. But yeah,
If everyone wants to give me just one brief second, I'll grab that here. It's gonna be